No kink shaming, but also if whatever you're into, you just are so fucking clumsy about it, maybe stop doing it or, get good.
No, nobody's good on their first choking, but this will sound a lot worse than I thought when I started talking. They would grade us on our practical skills. So the teaching assistant was the one that gave us the grade in what we actually knew, like the practical knowledge of anatomy. It's worse and worse. You have to go and tell your boss, I just met somebody. I would like to see how they are. I don't want to declare our relationship because maybe I will hate him after one dinner date because whatever he smells, I don't know.
Hi there and welcome to Totally Unrelated. My name's Diana.
And I am Irina.
And we have something special for today. We have our first trigger warning episode.
Ooh.
And for yeah, well, not really the occasion to celebrate, but for anyone making a scene about
ooh, why do you need trigger warnings, you delicate dandruff flake?
It's because, on our podcast, we care about not being a-holes to those who live with trauma. And, here's a house rule. Nobody cares if you
just don't get it,
or you don't think that something should
affect someone that much.
So shove it. Like I said, this episode will have a trigger warning, and it's for several things: sexual harassment, abuse, suicide, and a dash of transphobia. Because I don't know, I guess it's the flavor of the day. So definitely not an episode for everyone, but
you know
fair warning.
What's funny? Me as a person who is a spoiler whore in general, I also love trigger warnings because I just want to know what everything will be about and if it's good and if I care about before I invest.
Yeah, well,
what is wrong with knowing everything? I am that kind of person that will most likely know the end before I watch a movie or before I read a book.
So you mean trigger warnings as a form of spoilers, and you like spoilers?
Yes.
So I wanted to have a conversation about the very popular bogeyman of our times, namely cancel culture.
Oh yeah, that thing that never existed before 5 years ago.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, what is it and how do we eat it? How come, and this is sort of what the big question for me is while bringing this up, how come some people are so worried about the well-being, the whole shebang, physical, mental, and financial, of those accused of various misconducts and abuses, while also failing to consider the damage already experienced by the abused.
It's a mystery.
So it will be interesting to explore the thin line between the righteous outpouring of anger towards powerful or influential individuals and, just people piling on, which is also a thing. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, it definitely is a thing. And I can agree with the fact that the piling on is a thing of our times, because it was kind of difficult in the 1800s to pile on somebody from a different continent, but you can definitely do that now.
Yes, but you could pile on in a very sort of direct and palpable way when you were witnessing an execution and you were in the crowd and shouting, "Burn the witch," or whatever. Or
True that, okay.
I feel like it was more experiential that way, and anywho, so
people are more about getting out of the house and doing something,
yes.
Outside. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And once again, I thought it would be a good idea to use an article as a roadmap for this discussion, because otherwise we're all over the place. We'll still be all over the place, but structure is important. So I found this article by Appelbaum, a historian, and to me that's funny given what follows and her somehow lack of historical perspective, although I'm sure she knows her history, but she forgets it somehow along the way. And she's also And she's also a staff writer at The Atlantic. And her piece is titled The New Puritans. So buckle in, because this will be a feast of a grown-ass woman calling Twitter the new public square. And, something,
Oh, God.
frozen peaches, something.
Yeah.
I will put the link in the description, so no worries, you can follow along. And it will be a good idea to follow along, because there will be quite a few things that we won't be able to touch upon, because the article itself is quite long, and we don't want this podcast to go on and on and on.
We don't?
And that was my phone. Sorry. I should put it on silent. Okay, so are you ready to jump in?
Yes, I am. 1 second.
Okay. See? I needed to check.
Yeah, I was holding that in.
Okay, so Appelbaum starts off with a quote from the Scarlet Letter about all the different ways social exclusion can manifest itself, from people treating you as an untouchable, unfrequentable mess, to being physically moved to the margins of society. She says that we shouldn't pat ourselves on the back thinking that this sort of behavior is a thing of the past, because Twitter and cancel culture. But she doesn't stop there, and tries to enforce her argument by highlighting that the mob's outrage does not stop when you log out. So, she sort of anticipates this criticism that you can just log off or not voice your opinions on fucking Twitter, which we've argued is probably one of the worst places to.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's Twitter is just trash.
So she says that this cancel culture thingy has spread its nasty tentacles into the real world through HR departments and investigative committees that act like a faceless bureaucracy, passing judgment without allowing the defendant to make a case. She then goes on. How much intellectual life is now stifled because of fear of what a poorly worded comment would look like if taken out of context and spread on Twitter?
All the intellectual life that would have been available to us on Twitter. Can you realize? You know?
I mean...
all the intellectual content on Twitter that we are missing on because of this. Oh my God. Okay.
Twitter is the new Britannica.
I mean, I'm like this auntie that doesn't really know much about like what kids play with these days. But how many words are you allowed these days to use on one tweet?
I think they've doubled it to 200 and something, 250. It used to be 125 maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay. I'm an auntie too, so I don't know.
So like
something along those lines.
So those are characters, like 200 something characters, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like still just like a few words of all you would really distill down all the intellectual idea within you.
Yeah. So she continues, to answer that question, I spoke with more than a dozen people who were either victims or close observers of sudden shifts in social codes in America. No one quoted here, anonymously or by name, has been charged with an actual crime, let alone convicted in an actual court. All of them dispute the public version of their story. Several say they have been falsely accused. Others believe that their sins have been exaggerated or misinterpreted by people with hidden agendas.
Okay.
Yeah, well, obviously, when it comes to looking into the cases of those anonymously quoted, we can't really do much but take her at her own word. But when it comes to the people she did name, like I said, we won't be able to cover all of her examples here, but I encourage you to Google them, because you'll find out in the majority of these cases at least that the misdemeanors aren't quite as vague and the complaints quite as unreasonable as the author lets on.
Even if it were true, if I have a question about an idea that I think it's like so widespread, and I will be like, and just to clarify this worldwide thing, I will ask 12 people that I know what they think. Because like she says she just discusses this with a dozen people. So it will definitely be a dozen people that are willing to talk to her. So it's selection bias.
Yeah.
It's a really small number of people, you know. So it's like, okay, so maybe you actually, I will not comment on what actually is about to follow, but like, even if you actually find like 10 people who, you know, had a really shitty experience on Twitter, because I am sure they exist. I mean, I don't even know why she selected people that are actually, you know, have like dubious claims about their, let's say, innocence. I am sure one can find at minimum a dozen people that have been shitted upon on Twitter for no reason. But like, what sort of proof is that? Of what? Other than of Twitter being trash, you know?
And to me, it seems very, I mean, it's not like she claims to be unbiased necessarily, but if you're talking about cases of abuse or alleged abuse, it just seems like it's obvious that you're taking someone's part when you bemoan the fate and the treatment of the accused party without also maybe communicating or getting into contact with the person who was abused and maybe also see what their side of the story is.
Sure. I mean, it would have been a lot more honest if she was like, look, these are 12 people I know, so I believe them
my
because
friends.
I know them, you know? So
yeah, they're my friends or they're people I identify with, because I think this is in many cases what this is about. It's not like you have or she has conclusive evidence to prove that the allegations are false. But I don't appreciate something that Appelbaum seems to do repeatedly in her text, which I'm not sure is intentional or just a bad habit. But what she will do is she will start off by quoting someone she has named and their case and sort of glossing over it, going like, well, they are supposed to have done this or that, but we cannot really know for sure if that's the case. Again, if you Google it, chances are you will at least think that, well, there's something suspicious about that case and surely it would need to be looked into at least. But anyhow, what she then goes on to do is that she will, within the same paragraph, she will then continue with a different case by a source that is anonymous. And that case, obviously, because you cannot check, you will just have to take her word for it. And those cases usually seem to be much more straightforward in the sense that it does feel like, oh, this is a very disproportionate reaction by the mob. And so if you're not particularly attentive while you're reading it, the two cases just sort of blend together and you end up with the impression that, oh, well, golly gee, I mean, this sounds bad. These people are out of control.
That sounds like really bad reporting.
So, like I said, we won't be able to cover everything, but let's start with the first case. And that is the firing of New York Review of Books editor Ian Buruma. The way Appelbaum tells it, the man lost his job not because of having done anything illegal, but because he commissioned and published an article from a guy that was accused of sexual misconduct. And get this, several choking attempts by at least 17 women.
Okay.
Now, the accused wanted to inject some nuance into the story, you know, because when you have 17 women telling the world you wanted to choke them, you need to debate the finer points of putting your hands around someone's neck and pressing down on their windpipes.
Well, now, to be fair, I haven't Googled this guy and I have no idea what this is about, but there really can be a finer point. Was this erotic asphyxiation in a consensual kind of way, and maybe he was like just bad at it? And or are we talking like we were talking about coffee and I said I don't like coffee and all of a sudden I had hands around my neck? So, there might be a slight difference depending on what we're talking about, because it seems rather weird to just go around choking people. Like, how do you end up choking somebody?
Yeah, but I mean, even if it's within a BDSM context, for instance, I mean, 17 times and goes wrong, you might think that maybe I need to
What I mean is like, if that's what you're into sexually, it will be probably like even hundreds of times. It does matter how this came to be, but no matter what.
Yeah, but also maybe if 17 plus women disagree you're bad at at this choking thing, maybe stop doing it. Just like, obviously, even I'm not no kink shaming, but also if whatever you're into, you just are so fucking clumsy about it, maybe stop doing it, or get good.
Get good. Yeah. This is what I was going to say. Like, nobody's good on their first choking, but
but if you try again.
Yeah.
Maybe this was his mindset, and this is what led to him getting into trouble. So Mr. Buruma thought, oh, this guy who also is a Canadian broadcaster, so I'm guessing mildly popular at least, this guy needs more exposure for his side of the story. And, sure, some of my other colleagues feel like it might not be a good idea. And also one of his victims contacted me and told me she was outraged because her abuser was trying to garner sympathy, while she and other victims did not have a similar platform to talk about their experience. But, what do these dimwits know about freedom of speech?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all about freedom of speech and not about helping out a fellow public figure, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So to be fair, I understand that Buruma did offer the woman a column as well that would have been published following the broadcaster's piece, but I don't think that makes up for it. So
there is no way you can make up for it, for the fact that you are famous and the other person is not. Yeah, like, this is just unfair, and it will remain unfair, and the famous person will always have, the extra something whenever they voice an opinion. That's just it.
Yeah, so already the game is sort of rigged in the favor of the person who was the alleged abuser. So
yeah,
why you feel the need to tip the scales even more is okay, so another case Appelbaum cites is that of Peter Ludlow, a philosophy professor at Northwestern, who lost 2 book contracts after the university forced him out of his job for 2 alleged instances of sexual harassment, which he denies. Okay, so what I could find in my research about this is that there was a student who asserted that Ludlow had assaulted her. So, she accepted an invitation to an art exhibit, and then they sort of did a pub crawl or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
Never pub crawl with your students. Yeah, no.
Yeah. And he bought her alcohol and then ignored her repeated requests to return to Evanston and took her to her apartment where she lost consciousness. So after an investigation, the university found that Ludlow had violated its sexual harassment policy. So it wasn't just made up. There was an investigation and he was found guilty. But, he didn't violate the sexual harassment policy enough to be fired. So he got a sort of slap on the wrist and got away with it for the first time. And, he wasn't promptly executed, as Appelbaum seems to suggest. And then 2 years after this incident, the university investigated Ludlow again after a philosophy graduate lodged a complaint that he had non-consensual sex with her.
I'm sorry, non-consensual sex? I mean, that's rape.
Yeah.
What does non-consensual sex mean?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. So she was in 2 minds about it. I don't know.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to get a bit more pissed about the situation, there's this colleague of Ludlow named Laura Kipnis, who defended him by saying, female university students should be responsible for their own decisions about whether to date a professor. And argued that you have to feel a little sorry these days for professors married to their former students. They used to be respectable citizens, and now they are abusers of power. Okay, Laura. I mean, suppose we forget about the whole discussion about whether or not it's a good idea for teachers to date students they directly supervise. But even so, maybe once you agreed to go out on a date, you are still allowed to change your mind and not want to pursue the dalliance further, right? I mean, okay, so you've signed up for a date and now you are fair game for whatever happens. Like, why feel sorry for professors married to their former students? What is this shit? Like, oh my God, they're such victims.
Definitely those two things are not related. But I understand some sort of discussion about, is it or is it not okay for people who are not necessarily professors, as in they're just like teachers, not necessarily, because to become a professor, definitely you have to be of a certain age, because you don't have the academic title of professor otherwise. But when I was at university, we had the, I guess it will be teaching assistants, the words. I don't know. In Romanian, preparatorii și asistenții.
For all our 5 listeners who are Romanian, I believe.
Yeah, so actually the age difference was not that much, and it was like everybody hooked up with their, teaching assistants. Like, that's what you do.
Yeah, but also, I'm sorry, but like a teaching assistant's power in the classroom, whatever you want to call it, is not comparable really to that of a professor now, is it?
Depending. I mean, in my university, in medical school, back in the dinosaur era, when, I went to medical school, the teaching assistants were the ones that gave us the grades for this will sound a lot worse than I thought when I started talking. They would grade us on our practical skills.
I mean...
Yeah. And so in first year we had, anatomy, being in medical school. So So the teaching assistant was the one that gave us the grade in what we actually knew, like the practical knowledge of anatomy. It's worse and worse. I'm sorry. And if we didn't pass the practical exam, we wouldn't get to have our, exam with the actual professor, And yes, back in the day when I was in university, the exam with the professor was called an oral exam.
I mean, so the TA was doing the warming up.
Yes.
And then...
So they could actually have a pretty big impact, because you could not end up actually being able to sit for your exam because of your TA. And it actually happened to one of my colleagues and good friends. And it was no kind of sexual thing involved, but his TA just didn't like him. And his TA told him up front, but that, I don't like you. And I will not pass I will not let you pass the exam because I do not like you.
You shall not pass!
Yeah. And so he went to the professor and told him the story. And the professor said, I cannot independently verify this, and I cannot get over his word, but because somehow, I am the big kahuna, I will let you sit for my exam, but I will deduct 2 points from your grade because basically you did not pass the practical exam. And the professor let him sit for the exam, and my friend got an 8. So what that means for like the one people who's not Romanian listening to us, the maximum
Welcome,
grade,
by the way, if you're here.
in Romania, the maximum grade you can get for an exam it's 10. So my friend got an 8, which meant that he deserved 10, like maximum grade. But because his TA didn't let him pass the practical exam, But so that's not the worst example, because the teacher sort of knew that something was off with the TA. That's why that's why he accepted his request. Please let me hear me out and see if I really don't deserve to pass this exam. So I understand the problem with. I can see how it can be a problem, but it can also not be a problem. And I think it is complicated.
You mean the sexual aspect and
the sexual
dating?
aspect, yes.
Yeah. I mean, what basically your example just shows is that even without the sexual component of it, there's still abuse because of the fact that someone has power.
Yes.
and they don't really have accountability, because in this case, as you said, the professor was aware of the fact that, yes, my TA is a bit off, but for some reason, which maybe is, I don't know, like university politics or something, didn't intervene.
The reason was that the TA had, how we say in Romanian, he had somebody at his back,
Okay, so let's get on with the text. There's another example. After the poet Joseph Macy was accused of harassment and manipulation by women he'd been romantically involved with, the Academy of American Poets removed all of his poetry from its website, and his publishers removed his book from theirs. Now, since listeners cannot see the text, I have to say that Appelbaum put quotation marks around harassment and manipulation, and she does this a few times in the article for no apparent reason, because it's not like she has evidence to dispel these accusations. And like I said, looking for the details online, again, does not refute them. But yeah. And I mean, the man himself, Macy, he apparently didn't outright deny the allegations. He just said that, well, it wasn't a pattern of behavior with him, and, quote, "The part in the letter that says that I groom young women and wield my publishing record over people is not true." So, like, the other parts are true? Like,
okay.
I don't know. And, once again, for anyone still in doubt about some of these Me Too'd individuals' douchebaggery, we aren't talking about one or two women coming forward. Not that you need a truckload of victims to be held accountable, but we're talking freaking double digits. So
yeah, it's a lot harder to think that there is like this secret meetings for women where they, like, 20 women go like, should we do this? Yes.
Stephen Elliott, a journalist and critic who was accused of rape on the anonymous shitty media list that circulated on the internet at the height of the Me Too conversation, is now suing that list's creator for defamation, Appelbaum says. Would you believe that the defense of this man rests on the fact that he's a well-known male submissive in a BDSM context? Like, literally, I'm too submissive to rape is his defense.
Yes, sure, because rape is about how you do sex.
She continues, sometimes advocates of the new mob justice claim that these are minor punishments, that the loss of a job is not serious, that people should be able to accept their situation and move on. But isolation plus public shaming plus loss of income are severe sanctions for adults, with long-term personal and psychological repercussions, especially because the sentences in these cases are of indeterminate length. And she also describes some suicidal ideation or attempts at suicide that some of the accused have confessed to. And, this is no laughing matter, of course, but again, it's weird to bring this up. So, to be so prescient and so conscious of the toll, of the psychological toll that these accusations have on the accused. And yet, again, just somehow gloss over the fact that the people who have already seeing the damage is being done to them are the victims. And self-harm and suicide attempts for victims of abuse, that's really not an uncommon phenomenon. So
this is definitely an article about, only she's not honest about it, because she was like, look, this is people I think are not actually, they shouldn't be on the perpetrators list. I believed in their innocence, therefore, if I believe that they did not do whatever they are accused of doing, of course, any sort of punishment, I think is unfair. I mean, that would have been a better way to frame this than to try to somehow be, I'm this impartial person, but I only talk with the perpetrators of alleged abuse, and I do not talk with their victims, and I don't care what happened with their lives. I mean, no. This is not the way to write the article. Either you say, which actual purpose you are trying to serve with this article, and then it's fine. I mean, you are allowed to write that article and say that I do not believe those people and I believe those other people, and this is why, that's fine. Yeah. But no, not like this. Okay.
Yeah, and her attitude is all the more jarring to me because she doesn't even take into account or doesn't really talk about the fact that there's like a larger point to be made here, and that is that for many people who are working for a living and they don't have a career, they have a job, right? Oftentimes even just coming forward with these sort of things is a big step, and it's many a times a step in their trying to recovered from trauma, to sort of ease their burden, right? And it's difficult, and because when you might face repercussions for speaking up, you lose your job and you don't have anything else to fall back on. Even when you experience abuse, what do? You sort of rationalize it and you go, well, that was uncomfortable, but it's not a big deal, right? And you try to convince yourself that it's maybe not what you think it was, just because if you do accept that, yes, I was the victim of abuse, and then, I should do something about it because, well, I was harmed, but even apart from that, it's very likely that this might happen to other people as well.
Yeah, it's a pattern of behavior.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is it's really difficult to be a layperson, an average person, someone who's not famous, and to do this, despite what in the press many people try to say and depict as, just all these crazy people coming out of the woods with their allegations. And so Kipnis, our old friend,
okay,
she was not initially allowed to know who her accusers were either. She was also accused of stuff.
Okay.
Nor would anyone explain the rules governing her case. Nor, for that matter, were the rules clear to the people applying them. Because, as she wrote in Unwanted Advances, because, when you're cancelled, you write a book, there's no established or nationally uniform set of procedures.
Nationally uniform set of procedures?
Yes, this coming from an American is just hilarious.
Okay, yeah, okay.
States' right, but also nationally uniformly accepted procedures.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so being serious for a moment, to me it seems like the problems here are twofold. First, I'm assuming that many of these committees and HR departments don't have that much experience and a very long history of applying a coherent and cohesive protocol, since we only started viewing women in the workplace as fully human fairly recently. Conjugal rape was not a thing until a while ago. And second, no one in these departments is actually concerned about either the victim or finding out the truth. let's be honest. They are there to manage the institution or the company's public image and work out the least damaging outcome for their employer.
And honestly, it's not necessarily that they're not concerned, but they're not equipped.
I'm guessing that might be the case in many instances.
You are an HR person. How do you you investigate a rape? What do? You go and you take fingerprints and no, you are not equipped to actually find out what the truth is, because also sadly, when there are not dozens and dozens of accusations, if there is a disparate issue that happened, most of the times it happened with nobody else there, because that's how these things go. And it's generally hard even for, the police to actually find hard evidence. The poor HR person definitely cannot investigate the truth.
Yeah. And also, to be honest, regarding the lack of preparedness of many people in these departments, I think that even in cases that are not that extreme. So maybe it's verbal harassment or just, people being assholes and abusive verbally or maybe physically, but not to the extent that it's rape or battery. You need to have a sort of familiarity with patterns of behavior that are toxic to recognize them. Otherwise, you will probably either defer to the person who you perceive as being in power and maybe vital to the company or the institution, right? Or maybe, I don't know, there might be some cases where you do the other thing, where you think that it might cost you more to not side with the victim, but I don't think that's happening too often. So
as I'm sort of gathering here, the public outrage matters. And that's both very good and very bad, because unfortunately, the public outrage might not have anything to do with the truth. Sometimes not even when they are actually on the right side.
Sometimes not even anything to do with the victim, actually.
Yeah.
That also happens sometimes, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, so.
But this is the part where Appelbaum's piece gets slightly weird. She says, many highly social people who are good at committees also tend to gossip, to tell stories about their colleagues. Some, both male and female, might also be described as flirtatious, enjoying wordplay and jokes that go right to the edge of what is considered acceptable.
What?
So yeah, I mean, she's basically trying to gaslight people into saying that the rapey professor was just making jokes, man.
Okay.
Why are you so, humorless? And it turns out, you dummy, that you were actually being seduced in this very sophisticated manner. And, it's your fault that you cannot tell the difference between a racy and a racist line. Yeah, so she continues. Conversations between people who have different statuses, employer, employee, professor, student, can now focus only on professional matters or strictly neutral topics. And she says that this is a bad thing. My personal opinion is that there is something different at hand here, because I think some people have become more aware of the fact that their bosses are not their friends. So token signs of concern or friendliness from your superior, who casually asks you, how are you doing in the office kitchen, but then denies you a promotion or a raise. These things have sort of led to people becoming disenchanted with the whole, we are all a big family here in the workplace, if they believed it in the first place. So there is also the fact that plenty of people in lower positions have suffered plenty of indignities at the hands of their employers or higher ups that have gone unpunished. And, they think that it's better to limit their small talk to prevent conversations that might veer into unsafe territory. After all, I'd venture to guess there are still more instances of people at the bottom of the hierarchy that are victims of abuses from their superiors than the other way around.
I never thought I want to be friends with my bosses or that. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I don't understand this idea of we are one big happy family. I am at my job. I actually have friends. I don't have any particular need to become friends with my boss. I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Professors used to date and even marry their students. Colleagues used to drink together after work and sometimes go home together. Today, that can be dangerous. Suggesting that in the past it wasn't.
Yeah. Like, sure. Like, nobody got abused or raped in the past.
Relationships between people with differing statuses never presented any amount of risk before.
Yeah, no. I'm sure. Oh my God.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, we know that because there's absolutely no risk to it. This is why companies have either like I think they're called non-fraternization clauses or something like that. Like you shouldn't date your colleagues clauses.
Yeah, I know, and I will accept that I am probably uninformed on the subject, but I dislike the idea like so much. I was told by colleagues of mine that work in other countries, because I haven't heard of these things in Romania.
As much as I know about the corporate environment, because I've only worked in one place that can be labeled as corporate, it's more frequent to just have the clause where you're supposed to announce that you are in a stable relationship with someone if you both work in the company.
Yes, but like, what if I just want to fuck somebody and I don't want to disclose it? It's not none of your fucking business. I had this conversation with a friend of mine he's a doctor in England, and in Romania, he met his wife when they were both doctors in Romania, and they met in the workplace and they flirted in the workplace consensually, and they got married, and then they later moved to United Kingdom, and in United Kingdom they had to attend these like sessions when they were informed about such and such. But he said it was absolutely childish, this thing. I mean, if you are an adult, you should know how to behave, and you should know when you misbehave. And these things about you have to go and tell your boss, I just met somebody. I would like to see how they are. I don't want to declare our relationship because maybe I will hate him after one dinner date because whatever he smells. I don't know.
No, I don't. I don't think that's the point, because I didn't bring this up as yes, this is good thing. It's just that companies are sort of aware that things might happen between employees, and they put up safeguards for themselves.
Yes, of course.
If you would just be interested in your employees being fine and okay, and you would just think of what you can reasonably do within the workplace to encourage victims to come forward and to discourage any sort of interactions or roles or positions that can give someone too much power over someone else. Mm-hmm. Then we veer into another topic of how can you do that in a corporate environment where everything is very hierarchical and power imbalance is a rule. But anyway, obviously this whole thing of, I do declare that this person is someone I'm fucking, but like fucking reliably, and it's a stable relationship. So there you go. Now I'm a good boy or girl. But the point I was trying to make is that there was never a golden age where
of course,
where like interactions in the workplace or in institutions between people of different positions did not comport some risk. So
of course, and I'm sure that now it's better than it has ever been. I am sure of that. So
Okay, continuing with the article. It's not just the hypersocial and the flirtatious who have found themselves victims of the new Puritanism. People who are, for lack of a more precise word, difficult, have trouble too.
Oh.
They are haughty, impatient, confrontational, or insufficiently interested in people whom they perceive to be less talented. Why are they describing us?
No, I mean, yeah, no. Here, I will have to call foul because you are a teacher, motherfucker. I'm sorry. You cannot be, like, I cannot stand this stupid whatever. Yeah, sometimes some students will be stupid, and you know what your job description says? You gotta teach them anyway. And you cannot just be like, stop being stupid.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's this weird idea that, people don't like assholes.
Yeah.
Given the chance to express their disdain for their behavior, they will do so. Oh my God, that's a shocker.
Totally.
And
who would have thought? Yeah.
yeah, and also I'm sorry, but I don't get it. If you are a confrontational person, who relishes the vigorous exchange of ideas, shouldn't you be thrilled by people who tell you you're wrong? I mean, think about it. If they call you out and they are willing to debate you, then you can sort of flex your debating muscles, have a confrontation, and being the debate king or queen that you are,
Yeah.
emerge victorious, right?
Uh-huh.
And if, on the other hand, they just tell you to go fuck yourself and don't want to engage with you, you can unilaterally claim to be both right on the topic and also the victim of cancel culture, which is something that already happens in many such cases anyway. So I don't know why she is complaining on behalf of these people. I don't get it.
Yeah, true that.
So she says when people disagree with them, with the difficult people, they argue back with relish.
Oh my God. Okay.
So, there is an arguably thin line, I would say, between defending your position in an argument and being an insensitive prick. Well, it's not that a thin line, actually, but...
And as I said, it really does depend, because if you are discussing with a colleague, then yeah, sure, you can be an asshole. I but if it is...
As someone said on Twitter, bully responsibly.
Yeah, bully responsibly, totally. But if they are your student, I'm sorry, it's your job, It's your job. It doesn't matter that they don't get it. It doesn't matter that they are wrong. You have to teach them, and they have to understand whatever it is you're trying to freaking teach there.
And also I would say that if we're talking about arguing here, it's also good to sometimes... I don't know, just for a split second, stop and listen to the person who you are, I don't know, arguing with, before you tell them your argument, because it often happens that the person wants to be heard. And I know well, not us, but I know many people make fun of, I just want to, have my story being listened to, I want to be heard. And like, it sounds like such a hippy-dippy thing, like I want to be heard. But yes, this is, psychologically speaking, a very important thing to vent, to get it off your chest, to however you want to call it, without, someone pushing back or questioning you or, making snide comments. And then once you did that, maybe you're just more prepared to listen to someone who might say, well, okay, fine, I've listened to you. I do have some questions. And are you in the mental state or in the emotional state where we can discuss it further? Right? I mean...
And also now, I just, to say something that is actually bad, but, since we have no listeners, it's fine. If you hear what the other person has to say, you can also manipulate them better.
Oh, naughty.
Yeah, seriously, like a couple of weeks ago,
So this is for the asshole listeners. If you are out there listen and learn.
Yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, I had to leave early from my job, and I had one person who was supposed to come over. He wasn't coming just for our consultation. He also had something that really had to do in the clinic. So I just told the people at the reception desk, please, when they come for whatever else they coming, inform them that I am not here and I will gladly see them tomorrow when they come for the same thing. They can come and see me. And they told me, like, this person is really difficult and they will be really pissed when they hear this. And I was like, whatever. So the second day, the next day I go, I ask, and they say, yeah, he came, he asked, he was pissed. And he said he will definitely be there, as it were today. And I think you will have a difficult conversation. So when the guy came for the consultation, when he opened the door, I got out of my desk and I went to him and I was like, oh, you are Mr. So-and-so. I heard it was really unpleasant for you, the fact that I couldn't be there yesterday, and I'm so sorry about that. I really had a really urgent matter, or otherwise I wouldn't have, resorted to this thing. And I really hope I can help you today with whatever it is that you needed. And please let me know if there is anything other I can do for you. And he was looking at me like so shocked, and he was like, oh, no. Oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, this we're not selling you the secret here. This is very people can be so lenient with your mistakes if you consider the fact that you fucked up.
You don't try to gaslight them. Yeah.
I mean, just say you're sorry and mean it. Like, don't be like, okay, I guess I'm sorry, because many apologies are like, I guess I'm going through the motions saying I'm sorry, but actually you're like, yeah, it's your feelings, man. Keep your feelings in check.
Yeah, true. You actually did something. You just acknowledge it, and you will be surprised.
So moving on. Appelbaum says, the sort of open criticism voiced in front of other people that was once normal in newsrooms and academic seminars is now as unacceptable as chewing with your mouth open. Oh, if only it were so. I mean, the chewing with your mouth open bit. Vlad, again.
Yes. Yeah, no.
I mean, I think we both can agree that we wish there would be much more of a taboo and, social stigma on chewing with your mouth open.
I would like there to be a national set of standards.
Yeah. And I have to say, again, this is like hearkening back to some golden age that presumably was
there sometimes.
From her accounts, it seems that those who were invisible and powerless until fairly recently are having a say, right? She says this in the beginning of the article, and she says that this is a good thing. Okay, so they can now demand accountability for their superiors or colleagues' action. So what exactly are we saying here? Again, that there was the golden age, but then in that golden age, who was doing the open criticism if these people who are like the downtrodden masses are only now beginning to be heard?
Yeah.
You tell on yourself that actually it was just open criticism between people who were considered equal among another. So, maybe in the upper echelons of the newsroom, because I don't think the rookie newspaper, the guy who was sharpening the pencils could just come into the newsroom and be like, you are a fucking racist asshole because such and such a such, right? I think it was just between colleagues who were on par with one another in terms of their position. So
obviously.
She says, I think people's tolerance for discomfort, people's tolerance for dissonance, for not hearing exactly what they want to hear has now gone down to zero, one person told her. Discomfort used to be a term of praise about pedagogy. I mean, the greatest discomforter of all was Socrates.
Oh, bitch, please. Oh my God. Okay.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, the whole thing can be turned back against her because it seems like the people being called out for some of their hot takes, flirtatiousness and grumpiness, or, whatever she wants to call it, are now sort of ticked off and taken out of their comfort zone by the fact that they don't just receive praise and applause. So, talking about levels of discomfort. And also, I'm sorry, but Socrates was was very much a bum in terms of the amount of power and influence he had in a city such as Athens.
And also nobody's really sure if Socrates really existed. So
yeah. But again, just sort of going with her argument here, the Socrates thing. Guess what? Even, according to the legend, according to the story, when he was eventually made to swallow his words, quite literally, it wasn't the unwashed masses who got his ass, right? It was those in positions of power who were like, oh gosh, darn, this guy might be, inciting the youth to not think so highly of us. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah, so this is why I was throwing shade in the beginning, because she's supposed to be a historian, but I'm sure she knows this is a bad example, but
yeah, but she also thinks people reading are stupid. Just saying.
Okay, so she says it's not wrong to want a more comfortable workplace or fewer grumpy colleagues. The difficulty is that the feeling of discomfort is subjective. One person's lighthearted compliment is another person's microaggression. One person's critical remark can be experienced by another person as racist or sexist. Jokes, wordplay, and anything that can have two meanings are by definition open to interpretation.
Yeah, that is true, but up until now, her examples have been of people being accused of rape and sexual misconduct.
But focus on the flirtatiousness.
Yeah, sure. Some people might like to say whatever bad jokes, but that is not what we were, talking about here. The examples were not about people with a different sense of humor.
Yeah, I think this might be an attempt to muddy the waters again, because like you said,
definitely
the concrete cases were pretty serious stuff, and this is but imagine that you are having a flirty conversation and you think you're being witty and charming, but actually they're stewing that, oh my god, this person is doing a microaggression on me.
Oh my god.
Again, for some reason a nobody have to point out basic humaning to some people who are, supposedly big shots. You get to know people and you select friends and you have different levels of, jokiness or openness in your discourse with different people. Because come on, we talk differently in front of our mothers, grown-ass women that we are, right?
Yeah, of course.
It might differ more or less depending on the individual and your relationship with that person, but we modulate our way of speaking and what we tell people depending on what we feel they might perceive what we tell, right? So if you feel okay, well, I've talked to this person and they were, they were offended by something that I said, and I've listened to them. I tried to integrate their input, but they're still always misinterpreting what I say. Your personalities don't gel. So,
sure.
If you have to work with them, just keep it as simple, cut the small talk as much as possible. Just keep it very professional. Don't limit the interaction as much as possible. Obviously, you cannot force this. If you don't gel, you don't gel. That's it for today. Unless you have any other hot takes.
I don't know. I don't think it's a hot take. I just think rape and sexual harassment and I don't know, actually actively doing something to hurt your career are real things that should be taken seriously and not, lumped together with somebody was shitty on Twitter and some lady said something questionable in the 1 minute pee break from a Zoom conference. And I think that lumping things together to make a case about cancel culture bad is shit. So that's my hot take. I don't think that anybody who pretends that canceling is something new. I mean, the wording is newish, but I'm sorry. Have we heard about, I don't know, the Inquisition?
Burning people at the stake as heretics?
Yes, have we heard about the church since, has been a church? Was that not a cancellation? Yes, so, people not having their, opinions heard, people not mattering at all has been a thing since forever. People being, falsely accused or whatever has also been a thing since forever. People having more power than other people. What pisses me off is this conversation about these kids nowadays.
And also maybe the fact that some things that happen proportionally less than others are somehow more of a problem because they affect, the good people, the flirtatious people. Yeah. Whereas things that keep happening to masses and masses of victims, they're yeah, sure, it's good that we're talking about this now, but also look at the flirtatious people.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's absolutely fine to have a conversation about how having these social media platforms can skew conversations, can make something that would have otherwise been a somewhat normal comment become something that is insane. It comes to mind that thing from I don't know, some years ago, the guy with the shirt with women. With,
yeah. I think he was a
somewhat
physicist
naked women.
Or astrophysicist.
Yeah, yes. The fact that thing has become such a huge topic of conversation when the importance was, small, is what made everything insane, because it was a thing that merited a comment, dude, what the fuck are you wearing? Mm-hmm. But when you have the whole globe being, dude, what the fuck are you wearing? It just is insane. Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah, and also the whole globe was sort of split into two camps. So it was, what the fuck are you wearing, dude? And the other one, he's smart, he can do whatever. So, but...
yeah, no, but I mean... The guy, I've seen his apology and was one of the people that really struck me as being honest. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think you start crying if you're not honestly what the fuck? How did this happen?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think that, what else might be happening in these cases is that for so long, we haven't had conversations about what's happening at the workplace, in families, in relationships, between parents and children and things like that. Mm-hmm. All the problematic things or the thorny issues, all mm-hmm. the unspoken things. And then we use these, I don't know, bad takes or whatever, 15 minutes of infamy mm-hmm. To vent. And I think, like we discussed in a previous episode about all the things that apparently are there as a reaction to something that is like a stimuli or an irritant, but actually there is so much background to it that is not directly connected to the thing, but it just triggers a wave and waves and waves of resentment that just come forth. True. I think this is also the case that we just have so many things that we need to talk about and get off our chest that, these irritants just become a way for us to let it all out. And whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing, I think it's just a thing. It's happening. So
it's definitely a problem that this thing happens in a way that is uncontrollable, because you can start the conversation and you can start it in a nuanced way. You can, let's not even say that a lot of people don't do that, but you can start a conversation in a nuanced way, in, cool, moderate, let's talk about the issue way. But unfortunately, you cannot then guide it or in any way stop it if it snowballs into whatever on Twitter or on Facebook or on... And this is the problem, that you cannot talk about something that is an issue, but it's a small issue, because when it becomes global, it no longer looks like a small issue.
Yeah, there are too many things invested in it. And
so cancel culture is not new. People have been cancelled via the guillotine and burned at the for a long time. And always people with power and people with fame have had their, way of letting people know what they think, and most people have never had that. But also necessarily wanting to also add your opinion about a thing might sometimes be bad.
You don't always need to have an opinion on something.
You can just be like, yeah, okay, I'm moving on. I think we should definitely end this conversation, because we can go like forever.
Oh yes, I already finished my tea. So anywho, if you enjoy our content and haven't already tuned out, it would help us a lot if you could give the show a shout out on any social media you might be active on. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and now Instagram. We're also on Twitter, in theory, but I always forget to post stuff on there. So yeah, you'll find links in the channel description to all of these. So go check them out and subscribe and follow us.
Yay!
See you around. Bye!
Bye!